What's up, everybody? You're listening to yet another edition of Cocaine Willie. I'm your commissioner, Bob Trollsby, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, the good chef, Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt Marchesini. Before we get into the episode, we're going to be doing an instant reaction to the K-State win, 89-65 victory over the New Orleans Privateers. But before we get into it, we're going to shout out our sponsor, Annie Mae's Parlor. Annie Mae's has been in business for over 50 years. They're located at 616 North 12th Street, right in the heart of Aggieville. And they are a must-visit destination in Aggieville on game days and school nights alike. It's far and away my favorite destination in Aggieville, and I always make a point to go visit my auntie every time I come back to the Little Apple. They feature a wide variety of craft cocktails, draft beers, everything in between, along with entertainment like live music, comedy, and other events. As I'm looking at their website here, tomorrow on November 6th, they have Annie Mae's Trivia Smackdown. On Thursday, November 7th, they've got the Ghost Racket album release with We Are Branches, a couple of live music event. And then they've got Pendergast with Latchkey Party is playing next Saturday on November 9th. So be sure to check out animes.com to get a whole list of their upcoming events. And be sure to tell them Cocaine Willie sent you. Guys, big win for the Cats here. It was a little dicey to start things out. A couple of moments where K-State was down 9 or 10 points in the first half. But after that slow start, K-State really came into true form, pulled away in the second half, ends up getting a 24-point victory after it was all said and done against New Orleans, which is 348th, I think, in KenPom 348th out of 364 teams in KenPom. So initial thoughts on the game, who shined, who didn't, what did you like, what did you not like, who do you want to see more of?
Okay, so let's get this out into the ether right now. The team is long, they're athletic, I think they're coachable for sure. I think that Tang kind of saw what was happening in the first half, made some adjustments, and it was really just like a lot of the games last year where we're cold, the other team is incredibly hot, shooting 80% from the three-point field, which can go either way. Where is it our defense that's bad? Is it the team just incredibly lucky, just draining threes contested from damn near half court? It could be a lot of those things, but they made the adjustment, and the athletic makeup of this team and the length really showed throughout the game. And I think the one person that was the clear bright spot of this team with his length, athleticism, and conditioning is D&G. David Gasson, 21 points, 15 rebounds, MVP of the game for me. Not to put a damper on any of the other players that were donning K-State for the first time, but the guy that's been here for 3 years under Coach Tang the entire time was the real bright spot, and it showed that he's kind of that veteran leader that we have on the team. So D&G, the length of this team, really impressive. But there's some things to work on for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the first 10 minutes obviously looked pretty awful on both sides. You could probably chalk that up to maybe a little bit of, first real game of the year, kind of getting things together. But in really the last 30, 35 minutes of the game, it was pretty evident that, K-State is the better team, yes, but there's some differences from last year which look to be in the positive direction, I would say. I mean, the athleticism that you were talking about, we saw we saw better shooting in the last 35 minutes of that game, especially from behind the 3-point line. And you have a lot of different guys that you can plug and play into different situations, which I think is going to be huge. We didn't see a Chor in this game, who it's going to be very interesting to see the actual lineup come together, where you have him and Coleman Hawkins and Onyenso available and out there. With making sure everybody's healthy and any personal issues that are going on, when this team is at completely full strength, I will be very interested to see what the main starting lineup is going to look from a game to game basis, because, you saw Max Jones and CJ Jones started in this game. And Max Jones, played awesome in this game. But you have Doug McDaniel, who came off the bench, and, he brings this kind of different spark that I would say that is just kind of, he's quick, and he has the ability to get to the, get into the paint, and, just all these different things. So I think this was a very good start. Over 20-point game, win is, important to start the season off right. And, you're trying to cruise here, at least get through the Cleveland State game. And then you have LSU coming at home, which I think is going to be a really good, litmus test as to, okay, where is this team early on in the season? And, LSU is looking similar to us, at least in KenPom, so you're playing a team as of right now that has some similarities, but who knows? It's going to be very interesting to see the starting lineup moving forward, and, how what the main players are going to be game to game, and where the minutes distribution is going to be.
What do you guys think about the depth of this team? Because we got a comment here from Jason Bullock, who chimed in on the chat while we're live streaming this here. He says that this team is deep. I think a stat that I would share is Coleman Hawkins had 5 points tonight. He was the headline guy of this transfer portal cycle. He comes in and, he averaged more than, 10 to 15 points a game at Illinois, and he comes in, he's got 5 games against a bad New Orleans team. He was doing a lot of other stuff. Don't get me wrong. He was distributing the ball. He's, passing, assisting, everything like that. 5 assists on the night for Coleman Hawkins, 1 steal, 1 block. So he's doing other stuff out there, 7 defensive rebounds, leads the team in defensive rebounding. So he's out there, he's doing things, but from a scoring perspective, he wasn't the headliner today. But you've got guys like David Gasson with 21, CJ Jones with 8, Max Jones with 19, and Brendan Housen with 17. So guys that maybe we didn't necessarily think were going to be leading scorers coming into this season are headlining this game in scoring. So what do you think about the depth on the roster, especially after seeing it in action against a team that has a pulse unlike a Fort Hays State?
Yeah, I would love to see them. Looking at the depth, the box score, the depth looks great, but I would love to see the minutes, because I don't know. Buddy Rich, a lot more minutes than I was expecting, because obviously I didn't realize that Chor was going to be
out there a lot
during with family issues. But there's some players that, like Matt was saying, that's going to integrate into this team, that is going to, tighten some of those minutes up. And there's still experimental stages to this schedule still before we get into the meat of the non-con, before we even get to like maybe an off-season tournament out in the Bahamas. But looking at some of the stats, I know you're the stat guy, Bob, but I'm going to lay some out here. We only had 12 free throws. We took 34 threes. Is this a jump shooting team? I don't necessarily think this is going to be a jump shooting team by the end of the season, but Brendan Housen, 9 of his 10 attempts were from 3. That's where I kind of expect his wheelhouse to be. This was not a game where he was just chucking them up. I think he was selective with his shots, and I think he got them in when he needed to. He was 4 of 9. That's good. That's good percentage. But 9 turnovers. That's really, really well. As sloppy as it seemed like the game wasn't out of control in terms of the stat column.
And they averaged a lot of turnovers. What was it, like almost 15 turnovers a game last year, if not more?
It seemed like it had to be more. But and like you said, with Coleman Hawkins leading the team in defensive rebounding, David Gasson led the team in field goal attempts, but he had 10 offensive rebounds. I think a lot of those field goal attempts came off of his offensive rebounding, which he had 10 of them. That is nuts. That is a productive player. But Max Jones, surprise, like Matt was saying. Coleman Hawkins, when he gets in his groove, this team is going to be really, really tough. And CJ Jones, I don't think he can be understated, his steadiness. 3 of 6 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3. Didn't get to the free throw line, but 2 rebounds, 2 assists. And he did have 2 turnovers, but finished with 8 points. That's kind of where he needs to be, that middle ground. He's not going to be – that's a role player right there. That's a Desi Sills line if I've ever seen one.
And this team averaged 14 and a half turnovers a game last year. 490 turnovers over 34 games.
I think if we could keep it near that 9 to 10 range, I think this team's going to be pretty effective.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. The turnover piece, as you mentioned, was kind of a key thing that, I was kind of watching to see. This isn't necessarily a game I would say that you're going to learn too much about the identity of this team. I know you had said you don't anticipate this team is going to be a jump shooting team by the end of the season. Because for me, I think this team is very much going to be a jump shooting team by the end of the season.
You think so?
I
With
do.
all that length.
Yes, because I think one of the things that we're going to see with this team compared to a lot of the other teams is you truly have kind of like the 5-out mentality that he's been wanting. And so, you're going to see there are going to be lineups where Chore is going to be in there with Coleman Hawkins probably playing the 5, and you're going to have Coleman. You're not necessarily going to have Coleman Hawkins on the inside there all the time. I don't necessarily see this team as, we're playing on the inside to go get layups or, you're drawing fouls inside like that. I think there's a lot of shooters on this team. You're going to be seeing a lot more 3-point shots than we have, I would say, in the past 2 seasons. It's going to be a little bit of a different mindset. That's in my opinion, throughout this season, to where you're going to be seeing just more jump shots, which admittingly, depending on some of the teams we're going to be playing, you're going to be living by, how good you're shooting on a particular day. And so it's going to be important to build that bench, these players off the bench to be able to come in if you have guys who are having off shooting days who can come in and try and bring a spark. And originally that was what I thought Brendan Housen's role was going to be, not necessarily starting these games. I thought he was going to come off the bench. And maybe he will, at some point, but with the shooting volume that he's shown in the first exhibition game and then this one, I mean, you're anticipating that, if he's going to be shooting 10 threes a game, he's hopefully making at least 4 of them. But then there's going to be those games where he's off, and we have to have that depth behind to be able to change the mindset or, change the identity game to game. But I think this is going to be a jump shooting team through the season.
For me, what I'm thinking is that I think we can be more selective with not that we're not going to take any threes or we're not going to shoot a bunch of jump shots, but we need to be more selective with our threes, because when I think of the 5-out offense, I think of guys that can be ball handlers first to get to the basket, to put pressure on the team to have to crash down from the 3-point line, to make more open threes instead of, keeping it on the perimeter, just shooting them up and contested. So I think Coleman Hawkins is kind of that guy that needs to be able to get to the paint. A guy like CJ Jones is going to be able to be not necessarily the guy that finishes with the 3, but gets to the paint and lets a teammate get the 3-point shot out there wide open, hopefully. So, and because that leads to, where do you put Onyenso if we're running a 5-out offense? Because I have no faith that he is going to be out there on the 3-point line at all. He's going to be the guy that you're going to have 4 out there, and hopefully you get to a slash where he's a lob, or that there's people down there crashing with him that leaves people open at the 3-point line. So I don't necessarily, you think they're going to be a jump shooting team. I think it's going to be more of a slash to a jump shooting team. Hopefully it's more of that, because like you said, living and dying by the 3 is a tough way to play basketball. Ask BYU. That's tough.
Well, and I've got my notes up here from the game, and I think I made this note right after he had his 1 bucket of the game, but it just says feed Ugo ? And he's got 2 points on the night. So I definitely made that note because I saw he's down under the bucket. He got fed. He made the basket. It was great. It looked super efficient. I thought that was awesome, but it clearly is not how it panned out the rest of the game.
Well, you see, that play that you're talking about is when we were down 12 and Tang drew up a play where the ball never really even hit the floor. It was 4 passes to a cutting onion, so
Yeah.
under the basket. So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you could do that all the time, but I doubt that that Tang wants to have to draw up a million plays a game, which a year ago I was begging him to run some plays because we
Yeah,
didn't have
plays.
we didn't have creators. But this year is different in my opinion. Doug is a creator. He's out there with 8 assists.
Coleman Hawkins is a creator. He's out there with 5 assists.
Max Jones
has
5 assists.
I mean,
24 assists on the game. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and those. I mean, Coleman Hawkins this whole offseason, we've talked about him being this positionless basketball player. He calls himself a positionless basketball player, and we definitely saw that on display tonight.
I mean, the thing with the assists that also helps is that we converted those shots. Thinking about last year's team where it really felt like we were lagging offensively in many games. I mean, you improve even some of those games last year with, a few more shots that were converted, the assist numbers would have been there. And so that's the important thing about having guys who are able to make shots, or at least, whether it's a high percentage or a low percentage shot, you're still making it. That helps with those assist numbers. And having guys who are creative out there on the floor. I mean, the vision's key. I think we have better vision across all the positions on the floor. We saw that tonight. And again, this is a really good start to the season, 24 point whatever win. Because at the end of the day, everybody's thinking and comparing it to last season, the end of last season. And, thinking about all of the games last season, what were the defining negative characteristics about our team? And, we saw some of that, I would say, in the first 10 minutes of the game where we weren't making any shots, but they didn't let that drag through the additional 30 minutes in that game. They were able to start making some, making high percentage shots. They were making some 3-pointers, getting into a rhythm, being more aggressive and athletic compared to the other team. Those are some of the kind of negative characteristics that we saw last year that, killed us in some games. And yes, it's one game again, but at least providing a little bit of hope that, okay, we've brought in the right guys who are kind of gelling here a little bit early. And as we get through the non-conference schedule, you're going to have these different games that are going to be a little bit tougher. I mean, Cleveland State, I'm not sure how much better they are, but ultimately the game against LSU next week is going to be a really fun game, not just because Cam Carter's coming back, but you're playing a major conference team at home. I think it's going to be a really fun game to, again, give us that kind of baseline of who we think we might be compared to a team that is coming from the SEC.
Yeah, and we're not going to get a whole lot of opportunity to talk about Cleveland State or basketball until next week when we meet again and chat again about you, just because that's our night for the pod. But and I'm not going to be here next week, so I'm going to be watching the LSU game from a plane over the Eastern United States at some point. But what are you looking for coming out of this matchup and this game? What are you looking for going into that Cleveland State matchup? And even if we extrapolate that further into the LSU matchup, what do you want to see cleaned up or changed or different? Or what are things that in that matchup against LSU you're going to be looking for that maybe you didn't see enough of tonight that you want to see more of?
For me, it's defense. I think the defense can be a ton better. I mean, just the length alone on this team, inside baskets at the paint should just be non-exist. Well, I can't say that, but you know what I mean. With hyperbole, there should be no baskets inside with the length that we have. They had 16 offensive rebounds. That's too many. In my opinion, that's too many. We should be a way better defensive rebounding team. And it all starts with the defense, because if the defense is better, then we beat this team by 40, in my opinion. But the defense, if it shores up anytime throughout, I mean, the next game is Saturday versus Cleveland State. They've just lost by 50 to Michigan. And they have a game on Wednesday. So they're going to be running. They're going to have some games under their belt as well. So we just have to put these teams away and bury these teams like we should but the defense is what I think we need to work on. And I think it'll get better. That's all about communication and want to. And I think this team really wants it. And I think they're going to start playing better together eventually down the road.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I agree with the defense. I would be interested to see, if there are situations where, maybe Coleman makes some more shots, or you see Ugo get some more opportunities in the point or in the paint that he's converting to points. I mean, the things that I'm looking out for, number one, is the assist number at the same as this game. Because if that's the case, then it gives me more optimism and confidence that that's going to be kind of a sustainable number moving forward. You're going to have guys who are going to continue to be looking out for other guys to help make shots, and keeping that turnover number lower. I mean, I think 9 to 10, as you said, is that's what you want your max to be. And then as a team starts coming together, I feel like the turnover numbers typically start, and then they dwindle a little bit lower through the season until you play tougher competition, which obviously last year we didn't see that. We were always discombobulated, but I'm more interested to see what numbers are going to continue to be similar. And assists is going to be a key one, keeping the turnovers down as well. And then you mentioned earlier the foul shots. This was not a game where I don't think any team was in the bonus in this game. So that definitely indicates that we were playing a little bit of a cleaner defense, which that also means that if we're playing a cleaner defense, it's probably a little bit less of a, they're not being, my God, what's the word?
We weren't very
risky. Aggressive is what I was looking for. You typically see a more of aggressive defense, but that draws fouls. I feel like we didn't necessarily play that defensive level to where we were super aggressive. Maybe that is for a particular reason. But that's
maybe you didn't
that,
need to because you're playing 348 in Ken Pop.
Yeah.
But you still,
New Orleans were making shots,
they were. Especially,
and a lot of that is because we weren't very aggressive, like Matt was saying. I think a lot of those can be contested. You closing out on threes a little bit harder. Those mid-range shots that they were constantly getting from the inline, where it's just an easy fadeaway jump shot. I think a lot of those can be contested a lot harder, especially with the length that we have. And you know me, I'm a big foul guy. We've got too many players on this team to not be fouling. Get some fouls out there. Get some physicality. Feel what it feels like to hack somebody. You gotta. Those are things that you have to know what it feels like in a basketball game. You can't be going out there getting. Not that these guys were getting punked or anything, but you gotta feel what it's like to foul somebody hard. And we didn't show that. And eventually we're going to be putting the foul numbers up.
You're such a big foul guy. You don't think that most fouls should count, which is that's how basketball works.
I don't think people should foul out. I think you should just keep on fouling.
Just keep on fouling. And last question I have for you guys, and we can get out of here. Do you have any bold predictions for this season after one sample size of one game against a very bad team?
I want to hear Matt's. Do you want me to go first, Matt? I know you. I'll take the lead.
My bold prediction. Here's the thing. I've been pretty high on the people that he's brought in on this team. Because the Big 12 is pretty stacked. When I saw that we were picked 8th in the conference, I was not necessarily surprised. I think there's a lot of, we're seeing, we're like a 9 in the bracketology, and I feel like we're not rated as highly as what I think. I believe this team is going to finish top 6 in the conference. I do. I think you have a personality on this team that's going to really push, especially during the games at home. We have a really tough home schedule, but in reality, we're playing the top teams at home, and that's where you want to be playing them, to give the environment as your 6th man in those games. And I just feel the pieces are there, and this is the best constructed team Jerome Tang's going to have in his 3 seasons here. based off of what he's been trying to bring the identity from a program perspective. This game, it helps. This game really showed that a lot of the pieces are there and what he's trying to do. So I think this is a top 6 team in the conference. That would probably put us at a 3 or 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. I won't make a bold prediction about how far this team is going to go in the NCAA tournament, but I think a top 6 finish is a high possibility with this team.
That's a good prediction. I mean, that's not even necessarily bold. That's very realistic. I mean, that could happen. We've got a very talented team. My bold prediction, it's going to sound crazy, but I think multiple people, okay, I shouldn't say multiple. 2 people on this team can average double-doubles for the season. I think David Gasson is a double-double guy. Coleman Hawkins definitely could be a double-double guy. And I think Doug McDaniels could be in a 10-assist a game kind of guy. If he gets his minutes right, I don't know how many minutes he played. It doesn't show on the ESPN stat box score right now. But if he's averaging where I think he should be, near that, 35, 36 minutes a game, 37 minutes a game, there's no reason why he shouldn't be a facilitator on this team to the point where he's averaging 10 assists a game. So that's where I'm at. I think multiple people in the season with double-doubles average.
Those are both bold. I like both of those. I'm going to go with, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think I think the team finishes non-con play undefeated.
I'm
just going to say that.
I'm in that boat too.
I don't know if I felt that way before the second half started, but I think it's totally plausible. I think it's going to happen. And if you go into conference play undefeated, I think that's going to be good. So I don't have anything else. Any final thoughts from either of you?
It's good to get the gang all back together. Welcome back, Fireball Matt. We're going to have fun over the next 2 episodes. So let's get the party started.
That's going to do it for us today. And before we sign off, do subscribe, like the video, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you're getting this stuff. Subscribe. We've gotten a ton of subscribers on YouTube lately. We are now able to monetize, which is huge and cool for us. If you want to in the future super chat in, we will make sure that your comments make it to the very top of our live shows, and we will always answer those questions. So it's a huge help for us. It takes 0 seconds, 5 seconds, maybe out of your time to do that. So definitely recommend like, subscribe, follow, do all those things. It helps us more than you could imagine. And once again, shout out to our sponsor, Annie Mae's Parlor. Check them out at www.anniemaze.com to get a full list of their upcoming events. And we are the K-State representative on the College Huddle, which is the largest community of fan-driven content on the nation. So be sure to check them out at thecollegehuddle.com and follow them on social media at College Huddle. Last but not least, you can check us out on all the social media, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, wherever, at Cocaine Willie, or you can follow us individually. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Chef is at Chef Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt is at Matt Marchesini. Chef.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, baby.
We are all coke and no joke. Wildcat country.
Let's
ride.
Let's ride. Let's ride.